afternoon of August 24th, 1908, in the Kent countryside, 57-year-old Caroline Luard left her home for a walk. She had no idea what was about to happen. Caroline was born in 1850 into one of Cumberland's richest families. Her father made his money in iron mining, and Caroline grew up in a big house full of servants. In 1875, she married a soldier named Charles Edward Luard. Charles spent years in the Army, in the Royal Engineers, and by the time he retired in 1887, he held the rank of Major General. Years earlier, he had been court-martialed after publicly defending a dead officer's reputation against his own superiors. People who knew Charles said that was just how he was. Blunt, loyal, and not afraid to make enemies over something he believed in. The couple settled into a home called Igtham Knoll, out in the Kent countryside. They had been married more than 30 years by 1908. They also had 2 sons. One had already died years earlier, while serving in Africa. The other was still alive, still in the Army, stationed far from home. At 2:30 that afternoon, Charles and Caroline set out together for a walk, with their dog trotting along beside them. Charles planned to stop at his golf club to pick up his clubs. Caroline just wanted some fresh air before heading back. She was expecting a friend, a woman named Mary Stewart, to come over for afternoon tea. The couple walked together for about half a mile, and at 3 o'clock at a small gate in the woods, they split up. Charles kept walking toward the golf course. Caroline turned down a path that led to a small building the locals called La Casa, a summer house that belonged to their neighbors, a family named Wilkinson. Beyond it, a path cut back through the woods toward home. Caroline planned to take that path and be back well before her guest arrived. Over the next hour, several people saw Charles along his route. A farmer named Thomas Durand spotted him at 3:20. A laborer working nearby saw him twice more, once at 3:25 and again at 3:40. The steward at the golf club watched him arrive at 3:35. At 4:05, a local vicar named Reverend Cotton passed him on the road, took his golf clubs to carry for him, then came back and picked Charles up at 4:20, dropping him home 5 minutes later. Every single one of these sightings would later be checked and confirmed. At 3:15, while Charles was still walking toward the golf course, 2 people who lived nearby heard something strange. A woman named Annie Wickham and a gardener named Daniel Kettle both heard 3 gunshots. They thought the shots came from somewhere near the summer house, but gunfire in these woods was nothing new. Hunters came through all the time, so neither one of them went to check. But when Charles walked through the door at Igtham Knoll, his wife was not there. Instead, he found Mary Stewart, sitting alone, still waiting for her friend to come home. Charles went back out, this time on foot, following the same wooded path his wife had planned to take. He called her name as he walked, and at 5:15 that evening, he reached the summer house. What he found there would follow him for the rest of his life. Caroline was lying on the small porch outside the summer house. She had been shot. Her 3 rings were gone from her hand. Her purse was missing too. The summer house itself was still locked, exactly the way it always was. Whoever did this never went inside. They killed Caroline right there in the open and then disappeared into the trees. A doctor named Dr. Mansfield carried out the autopsy, and it showed exactly what had happened. Someone hit Caroline hard on the back of the head first, knocking her to the ground. Then, while she was down, they shot her once behind the right ear and once more in the left cheek, fired from just a few inches away. The time of death lined up almost exactly with the 3 gunshots that Annie Wickham and Daniel Kettle had heard and dismissed 2 hours earlier. Police brought in 2 bloodhounds, named Scepter and Sulfurino, to track the killer's scent from the summer house. The dogs picked up a trail, but it went cold at the main road. Investigators also searched Charles's house and found 3 revolvers of his own. A firearms expert named Edwin Churchill checked the bullets from Caroline's body and said none of Charles's guns could have fired them. The torn pocket from her dress did turn up days later inside the Luard home, found by a maid, but the rings pulled from her fingers were never seen again. With no real leads, rumors moved fast. Some neighbors began to whisper that Charles himself had done it and staged the robbery to throw police off his trail. Soon he was getting anonymous letters in the mail, some accusing him outright of murdering his own wife. Rattled and humiliated, Charles put the house up for sale and made plans to leave Kent. Years later, it came out that Charles had been seeing another woman nearby, and some of his golf club trips may have doubled as cover for meeting her. Whether that connects to his wife's death was never proven. While all this was happening, the Luard's surviving son, also named Charles, was sailing home from a military post in South Africa, due to land in Southampton on September 18th, He had no way of knowing what else was waiting for him when he got there. The night before his son arrived, Charles stayed with a friend, Colonel Charles Ward. In the morning, he wrote 3 letters to his son, to Ward, and to his brother-in-law, Tom Hartley, telling Hartley his strength was gone and that he'd decided to join his wife. Then he walked to a nearby railway line and waited. At 9:09 that morning, a train came through running from Maidstone to Tonbridge. Charles stepped in front of it, after pinning a note to his own coat, asking whoever found his body to bring him to Colonel Warder. Colonel Warder had to break the news to the son, driving to Southampton to tell him the moment his ship pulled in. In less than a month, the young man had lost both of his parents. Charles's own death was ruled a suicide, committed while, in the language of the time, temporarily insane. About 8 months later, police thought they'd caught their man, a 62-year-old drifter named David Woodruff, known for carrying guns. The case fell apart almost immediately, since Woodruff had been locked up in a workhouse on the exact day Caroline died. Word around the county was that the arrest had been a setup meant to close the case and calm the public down. The man who ordered it, the chief constable, was the brother of Colonel Ward, the very friend Charles Luard had been staying with before he died. Not long after, Kent police destroyed the entire file on the Luard murder, a decision that still puzzles people who study the case today. Over the following decades, new theories kept surfacing. In 1910, a man named John Dickman was hanged for murdering a man on a train in the north of England. The victim had been shot 5 times in the head with the same size revolver used on Caroline. Over time, a theory took hold that Dickman had killed Caroline too. Here's the theory. Dickman had placed an ad in a newspaper asking for money. Caroline is said to have secretly sent him some without telling her husband, and Dickman supposedly forged the check for more than she'd given him. When she found out, she arranged to meet him alone to confront him and to keep her quiet. The theory goes, he killed her. Now, to be clear, there's no hard evidence tying Dickman to Caroline's murder. The theory rests on decades-old, second-hand claims from a court stenographer at Dickman's trial, and many already believed Dickman was wrongfully convicted of the train murder in the first place. Winston Churchill, Home Secretary at the time, refused to stop the execution, and that same theory holds that the Luards' powerful friends pushed for Dickman's death partly to settle the score for Caroline, even though he was never actually charged with her murder. More than a century has passed since Caroline Luard was murdered in those woods. The case remains open in Kent, filed exactly the way it was back in 1908.